Welcome to the Brute Strength Podcast, bringing you worldwide experts from all areas of health and fitness. We cover training, nutrition, coaching, and mindset. Welcome your host, strength and conditioning coach, 2012 and 2013 CrossFit Games champ, Michael Caju. Mind, body, brute.
Hey, before we get this show started, let me quickly tell you about a program that we just launched called Outside the Box. When we first started Brute, we simply served people that wanted to train for and compete at the CrossFit regionals and games. Pretty quickly, we transitioned to also working with people that wanted to compete in the open, people that just wanted to look better naked, people that wanted to compete in weightlifting, as well as a host of other goals. About a year and a half, we started hearing more and more from members and former members that their priorities were shifting, that their goals were shifting. They wanted to focus more on their relationships, on their careers, on new hobbies. And they didn't have the same desire. They didn't have the time or the means to train for an hour or two or three or four like they did when they first signed up with us. So we created this program with them in mind. Outside the Box is a 30-minute-a-day program for 5 days a week, and it requires minimal equipment. There are 3 different tiers. The first tier requires only a set of dumbbells, and each higher level requires more and more equipment. So whatever you have, we've got something for you. At Brute, we really pride ourselves in bringing together experts in every area of the sport of fitness. And so when we were thinking about creating this program, we realized that we didn't have anyone that was an expert in general physical preparedness. So we had to go out and find that person. That's when we decided to team up with the founders of Warm Up and Workout, Pat and Taz Barber. Pat has been a CrossFit level 1 and level 2 instructor, as well as a flow master for years. And I've seen the level of programming that he and his wife have created for their company, Warm Up and Workout. And I can say without reservation that these guys get it better than anyone on the planet. So we found our experts, we created our program, and it's ready to roll. If you're the type of person that really takes his or her fitness seriously, but you also want to have the time to focus on your careers, your relationships, your personal health, and you don't want to spend hours and hours in the gym anymore, then this program is for you. If you want variety in your programming, if you want to know that you're going to continue getting fitter without having to put in the same amount of time that you're used to as a high-level competitor, then this program is for you. If you're interested, you can find out more at outsidethebox.fit. What's up? Welcome back. This is Michael Caju, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. Finally, I've got Matt Fraser on the show. This man needs no introduction, but in case you don't know who Matt is, he's a 3-time CrossFit Games champion, and in my opinion, as well as most others, is the best athlete in CrossFit Games history. This was a really special interview for me. I think it's one of the best I've ever done, and I think it's because of Matt's unique ability to articulate how he's developed. We talk about his history growing up with 2 Olympians as parents. He tells some epic stories from growing up to working with his dad in an oil rig. We talk about a lot of early stories as he was transitioning from weightlifting to CrossFit. And then finally, we talk about a lot of his beliefs around how he develops as an athlete and his mindset in general. This guy is super fascinating, and I was just blown away by his ability to draw on insight from different experiences in his life and just his wisdom in general. I know you guys are going to love this show. Enjoy. Matthew Fraser, what's up, brother? I'm so glad you're here, man.
How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Man, I've been trying to get you on this show for probably since its inception. And I've texted back and forth with Matt O'Keefe, your agent and really good friend. And he's always like, yeah, man, I'll get back to you tomorrow. We've done that dance at least half a dozen times.
Oh, yeah. O'Keefe is probably literally the most busy person
exactly
I've ever met. He has so much on his plate. So
I don't fault him.
Something slipped through the cracks. doesn't surprise me. He's had so many big things that he's been dealing with and just crushing it in the CrossFit space lately. So yeah.
And deservedly, man. Yeah, I don't fault him. So finally, I went straight to the source, shot you a text, and here we are. So like I was telling you before the show, I'm going to probably talk to you as little as possible about CrossFit because there is an enormous amount of media coverage on you talking about your performance, what a typical day in the gym looks like. There's a full documentary. And for anyone interested in that kind of stuff, there's just incredible media all over the place out there. What I want to talk to you about is more your development, your mindset, and some of the things that in general I'm personally more interested in. So I think the best place to start is with your parents. Let's talk about Don and Candace. And first off, my dad's name is Don. What a baller name. So these guys were both Olympic figure skaters. They competed in the 1976 Olympics in Austria, yeah?
Innsbruck, Austria. Yep, 1976.
So for those of you who are interested, you can YouTube Don Fraser and Candace Jones, No Hands Death Spiral. I looked that up last night. That was amazing. And you can watch for them.
Yeah, I don't know who put the clips up, but there's a couple clips of them floating around. So they were a pairs freestyle figure skating team. They met when they were, I think, 18 or so. My dad had always skated pairs. My mom had always skated singles, and my dad broke up with his old partner. And I think he was just kind of floating around the rink, kind of figuring out what was next. And he had seen my mom before, and he finally just approached her, said, "Hey, my name's Don. I think you'd be phenomenal at pairs figure skating. Do you want to give it a shot?" She said, "Let me ask my parents."
Nice. How old was she?
I think she's a little bit older than my dad, so she was 18, maybe 19.
Okay.
So she went and asked her parents. Her parents said, "Absolutely not. It's too dangerous." So they practiced together. Like dry land training, my dad was just teaching my mom some of the lifts and stuff like that. They were doing it like in secret, and then finally, she got permission from her parents to do one show with him, one competition, and they said, "Don't worry, everything's gonna be all right. No one's gonna get hurt." In warm-ups, my dad had my mom up in a platter lift, so he's holding her with two hands over his head. She's facing forward, like his hands are on her hips, and he caught a toe pick. So my mom belly flopped on the ice and broke her pelvis.
Oh shit!
First time they were doing a competition, my mom broke her pelvis.
Wow.
Yeah, she healed up from that, and they had a very, very successful career. They went to the Olympics, then they went pro. They did a couple professional tours and stuff, living on a tour bus, competing every weekend type thing. They were living their dream that they had at the time. And then my mom decided she wanted to go to medical school, and that was kind of the end of that. She didn't want to try to juggle two things and just went, "Nope, I'm doing medical school." My dad coached figure skating for a while, was really good at that, and that was kind of it. They started the family.
Yeah. So at what point did they progress from training partners to partners?
I think it was pretty quickly. The story I got was, I think my dad kind of knew right away that, like, all right, like, she's a keeper, straight A student, no BS, no drama. She just liked to work hard, and she was good at what she did. And so my dad just kind of locked that down.
Amazing, man. So were both of them, I know I've heard you maybe in the NFS documentary, you talked about kind of what the general traits you got from both of your parents. You got from your mom, hard work, discipline, focus, and from your dad, kind of this showmanship. But I imagine your dad must have had some hard work in him as well, and focus if he was an Olympian.
Yeah, I think the the trait of my dad having the showmanship and competitive spirit is only in comparison to my mom. You know, obviously
Mm-hmm.
he went to the Olympics, so he's obviously good at what he did. He obviously had to work hard for it. But you know, I remember once we were trying to get my dad to start coming to the gym with us. You know, so my mom does CrossFit in
Mm-hmm.
Vermont, and we were trying to get my dad to start coming in. You know, and I made a comment of like, oh, you know, I think once he gets in the routine of it, I think that's the big thing. Like once he gets in the routine of it, you know, it'll be like when you guys are training for Worlds or the Olympics or whatever, and he'll start to enjoy it. And my mom just kind of laughed. She's like, "Are you kidding me?" She's like, "Oh, it was like pulling teeth to get him to the rink at 5 a.m." And, you know, granted, I'm sure, you know, my dad always worked midnight shift pumping gas to pay for bills and pay for my mom's school and all that stuff. So I'm sure the 5 a.m. wake up call was a little different for him. But you know, what he's always been, when he says he's going to do something and he wants to do something, it's getting done.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, he works his ass off when he has something that he wants to work for.
So you have two parents that are incredibly talented / hardworking, two Olympians. What were your earliest memories growing up with your parents?
Um, you know, it's kind of tough. You know, I don't know about like my earliest memories, but you know, I definitely have some of just you know, it was really fun. Um, but just about everything was something athletic based. You know, whether it was kind of like handstand competitions. You know, my dad's always had like just that bag of party tricks of, you know, I remember being young and he could walk down a flight of stairs on his hands, and and so like of course, you know, we'd like clear the coffee table out of the living room, and like all four of us would kick up into handstands and see who could hold the longest. And then, you know, then it's like, okay, well now who can go down, touch their nose to the floor. Um, and then, you know, that quickly escalates to, well, who can walk down a flight of stairs, you know? So stuff like that. You know, we always had a trampoline growing up. I remember like my dad found one before they were a thing. And so, you know, my dad was always a stay-at-home dad, so he's the one like watching after the kids, and we'd be out on the trampoline. He'd go, "Hey, I bet you $1 you can do a backflip." "Okay, Dad." And you know, you try a backflip, and then it's like, "All right, now do a backflip with a spin," and that quickly escalates to moving the trampoline next to the house and going from the roof to the trampoline into the pool and stuff like that. I remember like my dad, like he'd hook a ski rope if we had a snow day. He'd hook a ski rope up to the back of the truck, and like we'd put on our skis, and he would tow us around the neighborhood on skis. And then that quickly escalated to, well, let's build a ramp off the roof. And my dad would get the ladder, help us up onto the roof, and we'd ski off the roof and land in the powder, you know, stuff like that. It was always something athletic based, and it was usually something that my mom just kind of shook her head at.
Right. Dude, all of your buddies wanted to go to your house. I guarantee that. What an epic guy.
Like when we were like 12 or 13, we had a snow day, and like growing up, I always had some form of dirt bikes, four wheelers, you know, just something with a motor and wheels. And my buddies and we'd be drifting around the neighborhood, sliding around on the four wheeler, and we'd pull back into the driveway, and like, "Oh, Dad, that was so much fun." And he'd walk out and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, well I got something that's more fun." And he'd have a rope and a sled, and he would tie it onto the back of the four wheeler, throw one of the kids in it, and start ripping around the neighborhood. And so it was always half reckless, but good intentions.
Amazing, man. So your mom goes to med school, and I'm assuming she is out by the time you're born, correct?
Yep. Yeah. So so I have one older brother that's 3 years
Mm-hmm.
older. Yeah, they waited until I think she was a doctor by the time that they started having kids. You know, they wanted to get all that stuff out of the way. And then my dad was doing real estate and some kind of small development stuff. And my mom was a family physician. And then when they had kids, they knew they didn't want to hire like a nanny they didn't want someone else raising their kids.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of an easy decision on which one of them was going to quit their job. And so my dad was Mr. Mom growing up. He was the one cooking and cleaning and supposed to be taking care of the kids, but usually just ended up in a game of dare.
That's awesome, man. So how did your mom teach you how to work hard and focus and be disciplined?
I don't know if there's ever like specific lessons, it was just kind of more like teaching by leadership,
Yeah.
So, when you start getting to the age of having homework and it's like you come home and my mom was always on top of our schoolwork of, okay, like, what did you go over in class today? What chapters do you have to read tonight? What homework do you have to do? And it was really simple of, just, okay, well, you have homework to do. So you're going to sit down and do your homework and before you do anything else. It was, you got home from school and you did your homework. You had to do what you needed to do before you could do what you wanted to do.
Right.
And so, that was just the norm growing up. I remember hearing all my friends talking about like they couldn't hang out on Sunday night because they had all their homework to do. And I was like, what do you mean? You didn't do it Friday after school? And they're like, no, we had the whole weekend. Why would we do it now? And I was like, because that's what you're supposed to do. Like you're supposed to get what you need done. And it was always like she always went above and beyond with her work. Like she works way more hours than she's supposed to. And then even on Saturday, she's sitting down, the dining room table is just all paperwork. And she sits there for like 8 hours just doing paperwork so that her Monday is easier. And it's like, so, just growing up, that's what we saw. That's what happened. So that I don't like, they never sat down with a PowerPoint of like, this is how you work hard.
Mm-hmm.
What you did.
Sure. And kids, really people in general, like the people that we look up to, we do what they do, not what they say. And so that makes a lot of sense. So you start weightlifting at 12. You already are starting to build this kind of work ethic and belief about how you're supposed to behave towards something that you're passionate about. What were you like as a kid weightlifting in, say, junior high and high school?
So when I was younger, I wanted to work hard. So, whether it was like with schoolwork, it was, I did what I was supposed to do, read the chapters, fill out the worksheet, or read the chapters and write the paper. I did what I was told to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then same thing with weightlifting, I did what I was told to do. And so my coach for weightlifting growing up, it was technique. So, my first couple of years in weightlifting, I got my ass handed to me by other kids my age. And it was like, they were so much stronger than me, so they could just muscle up the weights. Mm-hmm. And I remember always being frustrated of like, coach, let me load up the bar. Let me get strong. He's nope. Don't worry. Like years down the road, this will pay off. And sure enough, it did. Once my body started to develop and I started to grow, like the difference between a 12-year-old and 16-year-old physically is day and night difference. So when my body started to get stronger, I had the technique to build off of. And so, that's when I progressed is in the later years. But I always did what he told me. And so, the squats were super limited. We next to never deadlifted. And if we did, it wasn't heavy. So, the stuff later on down the road, I didn't know how to progress. So everything he gave me, I did. But then you ask a 16-year-old to go to bed at 10 o'clock at night because he has to be up at 6. No, it's not happening. I'm staying up on AIM Messenger until 2 in the morning talking to the girl that I like, And those, like missing those little benefits add up. And so, my weightlifting career, it was good, but it didn't pan out to anything big. And I think it was because of those things, because I was only doing what was on the worksheets and I didn't know how to apply anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I know we share something pretty personal in common in that we both had a love affair with drugs and alcohol as high school kids. How did that start?
It's for me, it started really, really young. I think the first time I experimented with drugs, I was in 4th grade. And then, drinking wasn't too far after that. And so growing up with my network of friends, it was normal.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I moved away and started meeting other people when I went to college or, just whatever. And I start telling these stories and they'd be like, what? 4th grade? And I was like, yeah, like we all did. I'm like, you didn't? And they're like, no. They're like, have you ever seen a 4th grader? And then it was O'Keefe's kids. Like, I remember his daughter was going into 4th grade. And I said something. I was like, oh, like, are you worried about her experimenting with drugs? And he was like, no, she's 10. Why would I worry about that? I'm like, oh, that's when I got into it, Yeah. And so, it, at first, it was just experimenting and,
Mm-hmm.
but, it started affecting like my weightlifting training. 3 out of the 4 days going into the gym, I'm coming off a pretty bad hangover.
Mm-hmm.
So that definitely affects your training and you're out until 2, 3, 4 in the morning type thing. Yeah, like drinking in moderation was never a thing. I thought it was just normal to drink until you blacked out. And with the people I was with, that was normal. It wasn't until a little bit later on that I was like, oh my God, like, what do you mean you have 1 beer at night and then that's it? Like, why do you have the beer, Yeah. And then growing up, I remember my dad always had this network of guys that he knew that they were about 10 years older than me. And so I'm like 13 years old and my dad would be like, hey, why don't you go hang out with Nate? And I always thought it was weird. I'm like, dude, the guy's like 24 years old. Why would you want me hanging out with him? And he's just a fun guy and he had a good network of friends. And like every Saturday they'd go out dirt biking. And so every Saturday, he would come pick me up. He would come to my house, kind of shoot the breeze with my dad. I'd load the dirt bike into his truck and we'd go out for the day. And later I realized that my dad wanted me hanging out with him because he was sober and everyone he hung out with was sober. And so it never really clicked with me. I just always thought it was weird. Like, why does my dad let me pushing me to hang out with this guy? I liked it because I'm like, dude, this guy has his own car. He has his own house. This is really cool. And then it was, I remember one time we went out, this is a couple years later, I know him really well, hang out with him all the time. And it was one time we were coming back from something, it doesn't matter. And he was like, he was speaking at a meeting and so it was a speaker meeting and I was like, okay, like, this is cool. Like, I'll just tag along with you. I don't care. I'll sit in the back of the room, whatever. And I remember hearing talking about, he kind of goes through like, all right, this is what I went through. This is what I did. And this is where I am today. Mm-hmm. And I remember like halfway through the meeting, I'm sitting in the back just crying because there were so many similarities and parallels between what he did in his life and what I did in mine. And I think that's when I realized like, oh my God, I'm an alcoholic. Like, I don't drink like a normal person drinks. And so I knew where that was going to lead me. So it's just that realization that I was like, oh my God, this isn't good. I remember just crying and then, it was a really good moving story. He was hit rock bottom, and turned his life around, and now super successful. You know, he's the type of person that everyone gravitates to and everyone loves him. But yeah, that was the eye opener for me. Obviously, it wasn't enough of an eye opener for me to get my shit together right away. So, you know, I spent a couple more years, you know, testing the waters.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, eventually, you know, just realized, okay, you know, I have some good stuff going for me, and I don't want to throw this away. I had a scholarship opportunity to the United States Training Center for weightlifting. And, you know, I was just getting in trouble and just things weren't going well. And I realized, like, you know, I'm risking throwing all of this away for what, you know, I'm risking having a bad time, getting in trouble, just throwing all this away. And, you know, I had heard the stories from some of my buddies that had like drinking and using. Alcoholism runs in my family. So, you know, I knew that the painting was on the wall, and I just figured, why bother hitting that rock bottom? And, so, you know, I I actually just quit drinking cold turkey, and, didn't go to meetings, didn't talk to anyone, nothing. Just stayed in my bedroom, did nothing, didn't talk to any of my friends, nothing. It just white knuckled it. And it was so miserable. And I was in the gym, just like a regular Globo gym type thing, just squatting, benching, you know, just kind of whatever. And my buddy came up to me and he's like, "Hey man, how you doing?" And I just broke down. Like I didn't know what to do. I didn't know which way to turn. I had no idea how to deal with life. And he was there with another buddy who was also clean and sober. And you know, he pulls me aside, takes me in the stairwell, you know, we kind of talk and whatever. And then we go back and we start working out again. And my friend's friend asked me, he said, "Hey, how long do you have clean?" I said, "I think about a month." He goes, "What's your home group?" I said, "I don't have one." He goes, "What chapter are you on in the big book?" I said, "I don't have a big book." He goes, "Who's your sponsor?" I said, "I don't have a sponsor." And he goes, "Jesus Christ, kid." He was like, "All right, I'm your sponsor. You're going to call me every day as soon as you get out of school before football practice starts, just so you're held accountable to something." And he started giving me homework assignments of, you know, like, I don't know if I ever did a 90 and 90, like 90 meetings in 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, he pushed me. He was like, "All right, why don't you come to go to this meeting, you know, just try them out, see which one you like." He gave me homework assignments out of the big book, you know, he took me through my 12 step, all that stuff. And it was really funny. We're talking about this. I haven't seen or heard from him in probably 11 years. He hit me up last week. He was down in Nashville and driving back up to New Jersey. And so he stopped in for a day. He does CrossFit now. And it was so funny. He was saying, like, he's like, "Yeah, I started CrossFit, and you know, everyone in the gym was talking about this guy, Matt Fraser." And he's like, "Oh, that's too funny." He's like, "I remember I sponsored a kid named Matt Fraser one." And he's like, "And then, like, I saw a poster of yours or saw you on TV or something." And he's like, "Holy shit, that's that kid." And so he said, he's like, "It's so hard for me." He's like, "I see the people like Tia Toomey and Catherine David's daughter and all these people." And he's like, "I see them as like these freak athletes that just crush everything." He goes, "I see you, and I see this like 17-year-old kid sitting on my back stoop, like, and I'm taking you through your fourth step type thing." And so, you know, that was pretty funny looking back, and pretty crazy realizing it's been 11, almost 12 years now of being sober.
Wow, man. You're an incredible storyteller. I didn't know that before today, man. That's great. That's great. No, that's you're the best type of interviewee. I ask a few questions and you just fucking run with it. So on the surface, I've always seen you as kind of a tough guy. You know, you're really known for the Matt Fraser fist pump, and you just seem like a really tough guy, and I'm sure you are in a lot of ways. But what I'm starting to gather is you're also a really like emotionally courageous person. Do you think that all has come from being in meetings, being around people that are being vulnerable and stuff like that? Where does all that come from?
So I mean, when it comes to when it's the time to be tough and to be aggressive, I am incredibly aggressive. When it's time, it has its place in time, and I think it has its benefits in certain places. But I'm not walking around my house growling and scowling and screaming in training. It's like, no, there's a place and time for that. So like when I'm just hanging out with Sammy, it's like, no, there's none of that. It's like just be trying to be as cute as possible to keep up with Sammy. I don't know. I don't know if it comes directly from meetings. Or working the program or anything like that. I think I'm very self-aware and I'm able to judge situations well, and I think I've become very good at dealing with bad situations, keeping a level head, and not just reacting to a situation, stepping back, assessing it, and then dealing with it. But I think that comes just from, years of listening to my dad. He was always super calm in the worst situations. And I'm like, yo, let's go fuck shit up. Like, what are you being calm about? And he's like, no, that's not the right way to deal with this. And he would step back, and sure enough, every time he was right. But it's just, I think once you've dealt with enough terrible life situations, you're able to step back and first off, okay, this is going to work out. In the moment, I'm irate right now. I don't know how I'm going to correct this. I don't know how life is going to be the same after this. But I've been put through these situations before, and I love my life. So it's like, it's going to work out. Just give it time, deal with it correctly. Don't say something you're going to regret. Don't do something that you're going to get in trouble for. Deal with it correctly. And yeah, I think just once you deal with enough life situations, you realize, okay, it's all going to work out. And as terrible as it is, I look at my life now I love my life. I think just about everything in it is where I want it. I consider it perfect. I am an incredibly happy person, from my relationships to, where I live, just everything, I've worked very hard for it, and I'm very pleased with the results. But I've been in situations where it's like, I thought my life was over. And so it's like, okay, I look back at this situation 5 years ago of everything tumbling down and where I am now. I'm like, okay, if that happens again, I know, okay, give it time. It'll all get better. You'll find the benefit of this. And, even if it strips something away from you financially or material, you learn a lesson. And then when that situation comes up, you know how to deal with it down the road. So just find the silver lining. Just know that whatever terrible, terrible situation you're in, give it time, think about it, react to it properly. I have a lot of good people in my life that have level heads. Whether it's my dad, O'Keefe, some buddies from back home that they've hit their rock bottom, they've come back. And so, just kind of ask them like, hey, when you dealt with this situation, what did you do? What would you do differently? What were the end results? What actually happened? So trying to learn from their lessons as well.
One of the people I look up to most is Michael Gervais. He's the sports psychologist of the Seattle Seahawks. And I emailed him one time, and we were talking about wisdom, and I wanted to know how to become a wiser person. And he always just gives such simple advice, but the biggest piece, he said, if you want to be wiser, hang out with wise people. And one thing I've noticed in you, and I don't know how intentional this is, but you surround yourself with wise and just good people. You don't seem to be playing the game that a lot of people in similar situations as you play, which is like the social media status game. You have an enormous social media, but you don't seem to be picking friends and and creating an environment where you're optimizing for that.
I forget who told me one time, but they said, what was it? I know we were talking something about finances, and my buddy said, he goes, if you hang out with 4 broke friends, you'll become the 5th. If you hang out with 4 people that love drama, you'll become the 5th one that loves drama. You become what your surroundings are. And so there's a lot of things about the people around me that I admire. And, some of them, they have crush it in the business world, but I wouldn't give you a wooden nickel for their love life. They crush it with their wife or their wives or their husband, whatever it is, but they have a terrible work ethic. I look at those traits from each person, and I try to replicate that. I'm like, what is it about you that I love? And that's the quality that I value. I have people in my life that, I just love the way they greet me. Every person says, oh, I love it when you walk in the room, you're always smiling. And it's like, oh, I should smile more. So, just like when you see someone, it's like, if every time you see them, it's like, hey, how's it going? You're like, oh, whatever. And it's like, well, people are going to stop asking you how you're doing. But if every time, oh, it's great, how you do? Like, if you're excited and you put out this good energy, then yeah, people are going to probably ask you how you're doing more often. But yeah, there's certain things about different friends that I really look up to or value. And so I ask them about it, and I surround myself with them when it comes to those situations. And I try to replicate the things of their lives that I like, So yeah, whether it's financial or their home life or the partner they chose for the rest of their life or their job, whatever it is, I try to surround myself with good people. Yeah.
That's a great perspective, man. And I'm going to take this one with me. I wouldn't give a wooden nickel for their love life. That is awesome. Is that a Vermont thing? I've never heard of wooden nickel.
No, that's a Donnie thing. Dude, my dad.
Okay.
Every time I leave, like when I would leave the house, when I lived there, every time like we meet up and then like our trip's over, it's always like, all right, love you, be safe, don't take any wooden nickels. And, it's just like, hey, like don't get screwed over, always be aware of if someone's trying to take advantage of you. Don't take any wooden nickels. Right
on, man. So I know at some point you worked with your dad on an oil rig in Western Canada. Tell me about that.
Sort of. It's not that glamorous. That was kind of the pitch we got, So it was a friend of ours from Ontario. He was my buddy growing up. He's about a little bit older than me, and every year he was in college, he would move out to Alberta, to like oil fields, and he would work a job there, and so we always heard how much money he was making out there and how much fun they had and all this, and so one summer I had off during college, I thought, like I'll go make some money, and so I went out to Rocky Mountain House, Alberta, and it's everyone that lives there because they work in the oil industry. And so I made plans to go out there. The pay is like double of what you could get on the East Coast for any summer job. And then the big thing about it was the pay was more, but then you're working 80, 90 hours a week, and I think it was like you went into double pay after 40 hours and then triple pay after 60 hours.
Damn.
So, I mean, literally you didn't have a life. You just you just worked. Yeah, I mean, once you're getting into those, like the 60, 70, 80 hour work weeks, you're like, yo, like, give me an 18-hour shift. I want to just stack money. And I remember so my dad was a stay-at-home dad. And then once I was out of high school, my brother had moved out, he's just kind of like twiddling his thumbs. And so I had made these plans to move out there, and, the cost for him to go out, it's like, okay, well, we'll just get an apartment together. We'll cut both of our living costs in half. Cooking for two is a bit easier and more efficient. And my mom was like, yo, if you can make some cash this summer, yeah, go. And, so we moved out. We got a 2-bedroom apartment. Oh, just a terrible, terrible hole in the wall. But I mean, we were never there. And I think we were the only ones working for that company that weren't originally from that town. So anytime they got a job where they had to send 2 people off to a camp, so, you're driving 6 hours up into nowhere, like you're going into an oil camp where it's literally a town. It's basically like college dorms and like a college cafe, everything. And you're there for a week or two. So whenever you got camp jobs, you got paid more, but no one else wanted to do them because then they're away from their friends. They can't see their family or friends on the weekend, all this. And my dad and I are like, dude, get us out of this crappy apartment where we have to cook for ourselves, put us in a camp where someone makes our bed every night. We have like a clean shower and the food is amazing and we get paid more. So we're like, yeah, sign us up. That was literally the most miserable summer of my life. It was awful. Just the people we were working for were just bad people. We quickly realized that we were like the lowest paid people on the work site. So, that as soon as you find that out, you're pissed. You thought you were making money hand over fist, and then you find out that this idiot next to you is getting paid double. And so you're like, you just immediately have a resentment. And, working 90-hour weeks gets pretty old pretty quick. And we didn't get days off unless it rained. And for some reason, the summer we were there, it did not rain at all. So it was just like, I think at one point it was like 84 days straight and it was a minimum 12-hour workday. You could go more, but it was minimum 12 hours.
No shit. That's legal. 84 days straight.
No, it's not legal.
Okay. Just checking.
So like the trucks we were driving, it was super sketchy. So they couldn't give us trucks so big that we needed a commercial driver's license, but they put the holding tanks on that were meant for the big trucks. So it was like if you hit a bump too hard and your tank was full, it ripped the deck off the truck. But the trucks were big enough that we had to keep a logbook of your driving hours and how many days you worked, all this stuff. We had to keep 2 sets of books. So we had to keep our one set to give to our employer to be like, yo, I worked this, I worked that, like to get paid. But then if the weigh station was open, you had to have your fake book to show like, no, I've had enough days off this month or whatever it was.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. So at what point did you retire from weightlifting? Had you already retired?
Yeah. So this was immediate. This was like right after. So I went, so I did 2 years in Colorado Springs at the Olympic Training Center. Decided I want to take my school a little more seriously. So I moved to Marquette, Michigan, where they have the Olympic Education Center. So they require you to take minimum 12 credits, which is considered full-time. And I moved there. I wanted to do mechanical engineering. And the school, smaller school, and they said, they're like, oh, we don't have mechanical engineering, but we have mechanical engineering technician. So I was like, okay, what's that? And they're like, oh, it's the same thing as mechanical engineering, but more hands-on. I was like, oh, sounds perfect. I'll do that. And I remember I moved there I was sitting down with the counselor to sign up for classes, and he looked through the classes that transfer. He goes, "Oh, you already have calculus 1 done, so you're already done all your math for this degree." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "I better not be." Like, I was like, mechanical engineers need like 3 more years of math classes over this. So I immediately realized that engineering technician wasn't what I wanted. So I literally just took, for 2 years I lived in Michigan, I took math and physics. Like, didn't really take anything else. And so I was still training full time. When I first moved there, I was just recovering from my back surgery. So I did all my rehab, came back, lifted for another year after that. And I was basically progressed as far as I could in that school towards a mechanical engineering degree. And I was just burnt out from weightlifting. And so it was kind of, all right, time to move on, time to find something else. So I stopped weightlifting, was basically clueless of where I wanted to go next, what I wanted to do next. And so I just filled that void with work, just worked sun up, sun down every single day. And then it was from working out there, like in the oil industry, you meet a ton of people, you talk to a lot of people and kind of figure out what the career paths and opportunities are out there. And so that was the plan. After I moved away from there, I was lowest on the totem pole when I was there, but they said, okay, if you don't drink or drug, you have a clean driving record and an education, they're like, you can come out here and just write your own paychecks. They're like, you can do whatever you want. And so, okay, cool. I don't drink or drug. I have a clean driving record. I'll go get the education. I'll be right back. And so I went back to University of Vermont to get my mechanical engineering degree with full intent of getting stationed on like an offshore oil rig or something and working 28 days on, 28 days off. And that was going to be my life. But then this whole CrossFit thing started up and everything else got put on hold.
Right. So you can get back to that in a few years, I guess.
Yeah.
So you find CrossFit, and I want to fast forward a little bit here. I think it's the 2014 ECC was kind of your coming out moment. Is that the right year?
Yeah, that was, so, I had done some competitions up to that, but they were all in-house local comp.
Mm-hmm.
And, so Bergeron was putting on that was like, I think it was like the first of its kind where, like they rented out a venue. They invited games athletes,
Mm-hmm.
so it wasn't just people local to the area. He brought in games athletes. He catered events to be a good show, stuff like that. And so that was my first time showing up. I want to say there was 11 or 12 games athletes there.
I think it was 12.
Yeah. And, so I did the first ECC, which was, he rented out a venue, but it wasn't like a big deal, I remember I did that, and no, I take that back. No, so I did that first competition, and I remember I did that first competition, and I weighed, right before I did it, I weighed 169.7. So I was a run.
Yep.
And then that was in September. And then by January, when I competed at the second ECC, I was 203.
Damn.
Yeah, I packed on the weight.
Just eating Cheez-Its.
Dude, I pizza and Chinese food. There's a pizza truck and a Chinese food truck parked outside the library at my school. And so that's what I ate every day. Like 1-2 meals a day was either...
Why not?
4 slices of pepperoni pizza or General Tao's combo for $5. Yeah, that first ECC was it was definitely a life-changing event for me. It was going against some of the well-known names at the time. So first, I remember. So this is like when I first met O'Keefe was right before the ECC. And he knew Bergeron a little bit. I wasn't working with Bergeron at this point either. And so once registration was closed, registration was $100, and he put out a fun challenge. I forget who the games athlete was that did the workout, but he had a games athlete do a workout called Godzilla.
Yep, I know it.
And he said, if anyone beats this time, I'll give you your $100 back. And so I'm like, oh my God, I can make $100 right now. I'm in. And so the time was like 8:57 for 3 rounds of 1 legless rope climb, 2 snatches at 225, 3 back squats at 365, and 4 parallel handstand push-ups. 3 rounds. You had to beat 8:57. And so I did it once, and but I didn't have a camera. And so I told O'Keefe, I was like, hey, I did the workout, and I was like 3:30 or something like that for the workout. And everyone else at the time was beating the time by like 3-4 seconds. And I think there was like 2 or 3 athletes that had done it. And so O'Keefe had planned a trip to Vermont, to just like kind of hang out, get to know me. And he was bringing a camera with him. But the deadline was like, say, 7 p.m. and he wasn't getting there until 8 p.m. or whatever. And so he called Bergeron and said like, hey, I'm going up to Vermont to meet this kid, but he doesn't have a camera. You know, can he submit his video like 2 hours late? And Bergeron's like, yeah, fine. That's fine. And O'Keefe had mentioned that I already did it. And he was like, oh, no. So then we filmed it. I did the workout. He filmed it and called Bergeron and said, hey, like, I'll have the video to you in an hour. Bergeron's like, oh, okay, cool. You know, what was his time? And O'Keefe goes, 2:57. And Bergeron goes, oh no. Like, sorry. It was 3 rounds, not 1 round. You know, you had to do the whole thing 3 times. And O'Keefe goes, yeah, he did it 3 times. And Bergeron's like, and he did it in sub 3 minutes. Like the next fastest time was 8:47. And O'Keefe's like, yeah, I watched him do it. He did it in 2:57. And so we got our video, sent it to him. And I'm at my desk that night doing my homework for engineering. And I get a Facebook direct message from Ben Bergeron. And I have to dig it up, but the message he sent was literally, hi, my name's Ben Bergeron. I want you to drop out of college, move into my basement in Boston, and I'll make you world champion. That was it.
Oh, that's fucking great.
I literally hit the X and just started doing homework again. I was like, who the fuck is this quack job asking me to drop out of school and move into his basement so he can train me full time? I was like, get the fuck out of here. Like, no, it's not happening, you weirdo. And then like, it was like a couple weeks later, I went to the ECC. You know, it was the first time I met Chris Spieler.
I think there was a funny conversation between you two.
Yeah. You know, so he was on the cover of some CrossFit magazine that was on the coffee table at my gym. And so, you know, I don't know anyone. I don't know any games athletes. I don't know anything about the sport, nothing. But I've seen this magazine every day for the last couple months, and it has Chris Spieler on the cover of it. And but he was clean shaved in the picture. And so I'm in the warm-up area at the ECC before the first event even started. And he walks in and he has a full beard. And I'm like, I think that's him. And, you know, I didn't have my glasses on. And so I was blind as a bat. And so I'm like squinting, trying to look at him, trying to see him. I'm like, is that the dude on the magazine? Like, he's famous. Like,
yes.
And he sees me looking at him. And he walks up to Austin Malleolo, who's kind of on the other side. And I heard him say, he goes, and the mean mugging begins. And I was like, oh shit, no, I wasn't trying to mean mug you. I wasn't trying to intimidate anything. I was like, I'm blind. I'm trying to see if you're the dude on the cover of the magazine. And so anyways, I want to say the day of competition was like 5 events maybe. And I think I won the first 4.
Of course.
and so like, and I didn't know anyone. So I'm literally sitting in the corner by myself, scared to talk to anyone, huge social anxiety. Like I'm not talking to anyone. Scares the shit out of me. And, but early in the day, I put my gym bag at a table. And so I walk over to the table to like get my gymnastics grips or something. And Spieler's sitting there with a bunch of other people. And I'm so nervous walking. So I say, I'm like, hey guys, like, sorry, I don't mean to like interrupt. I'm just getting my stuff out of my gym bag. It was here earlier. And Spieler just looks at me. Who the fuck are you? And I'm like, oh my God. Like, what do you mean? I was like, hi, my name's Matt. And he goes, yeah, but who are you? Like, you've won the last 4 events and there's 12 games athletes here and I've never heard of you. Who are you? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know how you want me to answer this. Like, my name's Matt. I don't know. This first time I met Tommy Hackenbrook. Tommy's just like a bro. Just like, he's just kind of giving me a hard time. And, I think it was after like 1 or 2 events, I'd won the first 2 and going into the third, it was on an axle bar. So, he had the huge advantage. He has like just these bear claws. And so he's kind of like, all right, you had the first 2, but this one's mine. And I'm like, all right, cool. Sounds good to me, man. And I remember I walked out of the warm-up area and O'Keefe's checking on me and he was with Bergeron and he comes up to me and he's like, hey man, like, how's it going? Like, basically like a kid at camp, he's like, making friends back there. I'm like, oh yeah, I was like, I met this one really fun guy. His name's Tommy Hucklebuck or something. And Bergeron's like, Tommy Hackenbrook? I was like, yeah, that's him. He's a really, really fun guy. And he's like, yeah, he's the 2-time affiliate champion. You should learn his name. And I was like, oh, I don't know what that means, but okay. Like, I had no idea what the affiliate champion meant. But yeah, that was a big eye-opening experience. It was the first time someone asked me for a picture, so that I froze and acted really awkward. But yeah, and I won 10 grand. So, I walked home with like, I didn't know what to do. I was like, I just made $10,000. Like, I'm rich. This is awesome.
Incredible, man. So then you go on to take second that year in the games behind Rich. And then the next year, I've heard this story from O'Keefe's perspective, actually on the show, but I want to hear your perspective. So tell me about Home Depot.
The Home Depot story. Yeah, I was at the 2014 games. So the first event was the swim. So, we're on a bus and they drive you to the beach and all that. So this is, I think, event 2 was the overhead squat event, and it's in, I think it was in the, it was in the tennis stadium. And so, this is my first time competing in the tennis stadium, first time, on the competition floor, getting the real experience. And so the StubHub Center used to be the Home Depot Center. And, so I'm super nervous before the event, getting all my stuff at the hotel, triple checking everything. And then O'Keefe is driving me to the Home Depot Center. And, in the briefing, they're like, if you're not here 2 hours before call time, you're not competing at the games. They're super strict about it. And so I'm like, I need to be there 3 hours early. I'm taking no chances. And we're driving, of course you're hitting California traffic and it's like bumper to bumper, all this. I'm like, O'Keefe, how much further? How much further? He's looking at his phone, the GPS, and he's, oh, it says 10 minutes, says 8 minutes, says 5 minutes. Don't worry, we're going to be there. We're going to make it. And then we did kind of a weird turn. Like, it wasn't a direct U-turn, but that was the end result. Was we pulled a U-turn, and I'm like, hey, how much longer we got until we were there? And he goes, 20 minutes. I was like, 2 minutes ago it was 5 minutes. Why is it now 20 minutes? And I'm like, the gears are turning up top. And I remember I turned around in the car and I looked behind me, and the end of the street, it's just a bright orange Home Depot. And I looked at him and went, you drove me to a fucking Home Depot, didn't you? You drove me to a fucking Home Depot. And he's, no, man, no, we're good. Don't worry. And so he just kept it cool. And so I was like, all right, he's calm. I should be calm. And yeah, so he drops me off. I get there. I get all checked in, everything's fine. And I remember he's sitting in the crowd with one of my buddies from Vermont, and he's like just shaking, nervous of like, oh my God, Tyler, I drove him to a fucking Home Depot instead of here. Like, if he bombs out, it's my fault. Like, he needs to make a lift. And so, he was just like so nervous, and thankfully, the event went well for me. I hit some good numbers, but yeah, that was my first experience at the games of on the competition floors. I accidentally got driven to a Home Depot.
Amazing, man. So let's finish off with a few about kind of beliefs and mindset, because you have a very strong mindset in general, but you also have just some really interesting beliefs around the way that you live life and develop yourself as a person. The first is that you're probably the most habitual person in the game, and you wake up at exactly the same time every day. When did this start?
I think a lot of my habits came from me doing some research on what's best, and so it's like, when it comes to sleep, it's like my sleep schedule and my sleep routine is, you can set your watch to it. And it was because I did some research on basically the benefits of a proper night's sleep. And I realized it was like, dude, if sleep wasn't a normal thing and then someone discovered it, it would be a banned substance of just,
yes, it would,
of how many benefits there are from it. And just, just the internal chemical balances of how much it boosts your testosterone, your HGH, all this stuff. And then it's like you wake up feeling amazing and you're ready to hit the day. And so, at first it was like, okay, I'll try it out. I was a regular college student, like 4 hours sleep if I had to. And then it's like you just got through training, and then I started experiencing the 8, 9, 10 hour nights of sleep. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like a superhero. And so then as soon as I realized, like, okay, 10 hours of sleep is better than 4 hours. Okay. Then that's what I'll do every night for the rest of my life. 10 hours sleep. So, who knows if that'll hold up once kids start running around, but while I'm competing, it's 10 hours.
I suppose if you sedate them, yeah, that could work out.
Just hit them with some NyQuil, the $7 babysitter.
Yep.
And yeah, so, even things like diet, the times I eat, what I eat, I look at every decision in my life as turning left or turning right. And I look at it as, okay, which one is going to put me closer to my end goal? And that's the turn I take. So, when it comes to my sleep every single night, well, I'm going to do what's better for my competitive career. And then I realized, okay, well, when I'm competing, I wake up at 7, 8, 9, whatever it is for that training cycle. And then I used to be like, okay, treat yourself. It's Sunday. It's your day off. You get to sleep in, be lazy. But then I just found then Sunday night when I'm going to bed, I'm having a hard time falling asleep because I stayed in bed until 11. And so even on off days, I keep the exact same schedule, on day, off day, so that no matter what, I know what I'm dealing with going into the day. I'm not having to modify anything because I'm feeling slow. So training, I'm not doing any quick movements. I'm just able to program better. I'm able to execute better because I know the deck that I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm. So much good shit there, man. Yeah, there's a lot of there's an effect on our hormones, our stress levels, and our emotions that comes with just doing things at the same time, regardless of the amount of sleep you're getting. Just going to sleep and waking up at the same time has a huge effect on us.
It's crazy, and like, I couldn't tell you the last time I was on a regular sleep schedule before like 3 years ago. Through high school, it was like you stay up until 2 a.m. You're up at 6 for school. You're falling asleep on the bus, and that was just normal. You're pounding down energy drinks to get through football practice. That was just normal. Everyone was doing it. Even training at the Olympic Training Center. It's like, no, like I'm a college student. I'm 18. I don't know how to do this properly. I don't know how to take this seriously. And so, you just miss out on all that potential. And so now I have something that I want to dedicate my time and energy to. And it's like for some aspects of life, I'm putting life on hold for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And it's like, okay, well, if I'm sacrificing all of this, I want to make sure I'm getting every drop I can out of what I'm doing to make it worthwhile. I don't want to sacrifice stuff and then just have a shitty career.
Mm-hmm.
What did I sacrifice anything for?
Right.
So, I just really focus on getting anything and everything that I can out of the day. And it makes life easier to schedule. I'm a man of routine. I basically every single day looks the same for me when I'm in training. And it's just, it's what I like, how I find I perform the best. So it's what I do.
Man, not all high performers, but an incredibly high amount of the most high performing athletes, artists, etc., have this like sick obsession with ritual and habit. And so it's really not surprising to hear you say all of this.
It's been crazy. So in the last 2 or 3 years, I've gotten to meet a lot of amazing people, and not just in CrossFit, all aspects. So like perfect examples, like I did that USO tour, like in December. And
Mm-hmm.
so, we hit like, what was it? Like 6 countries. It was over 8 days or something. And
was it in the Middle East area? Yeah.
so yeah, we hit like Afghanistan, Iraq, stuff in Poland. I can't remember off the top of my head, but regardless, we're spending the group that I'm on the road with. You're with them for 8 days, 24/7. Like you get 5 hours of sleep. It's the only time you spend apart, but all the other time you're together. So, I got to know these people really, really well. And so like the one that I spent the most time with, mainly because we went on stage together, was Shaun White. Like, freak snowboarder. I've watched
One of the best athletes of all time.
10 years old, and
Right.
I'm sitting there, I'm like, holy shit, you're Shaun White. But anyways, by the end of the week, you're not looking at him as this freak athlete, this freak snowboarder that I've seen on TV. I'm seeing him as just this guy named Shaun White, and I've gotten to know him fairly well. And once we got talking, it was like there was so many parallels in our life and experiences and competing and training, so many things. And it had nothing to do with he was in a sport. It was the fact that he's gone through so many of these same experiences, and he had the same reaction to him of like, okay, I messed up. Like, okay, that run didn't go well. How do I get better at it? And breaking it down, the way he trains, the way he handles his business, his life. The guy that hosted the USO tour, he was the host for all the shows, Wilmer Valderrama. I grew up watching him as Fez on that 70s show. And so now I'm getting to see him, and I'm like, dude, I've watched you for 9 seasons, like 200 episodes as Fez. And so when you first meet him, that's how I relate to him. It's like, I've seen you on TV for the last 15 years of my life type thing. By the end of the week, no, he's Wilmer, you know? And he's not even in athletics. He's in acting. And it was crazy hearing their stories and what they went through and how they failed and how they came back, and just so many parallels. And so I realized, like, whenever someone's the best in the world at what they do, it's rare that they got there without getting their teeth kicked. It's rare they got there without failure, but it's how they responded to that failure that made them what they are today. And that's why they're amazing at what they do. And so, yeah, you know, I've met a lot of people that aren't in athletics, that are just one of the best in the world at what they do. And so, that's incredible in itself. Like, you've put yourself in the 1%, and it's asking, like, okay, like, what was your biggest fuck up? Like, where did you think life was going to be hopeless? And what did you do to get out of that? Mm-hmm. And basically everyone has the same story of like, oh yeah, I got super depressed, you know, wrote down my values, figured out what I wanted to do, realized I wanted to take another swing at it, and put an attack plan together, and I dedicated everything to it and all this. And now they're reaping the benefits of it.
So I want to put a pin in that, but before we get to that, what was because you weren't always this way, like you weren't this way with weightlifting, but you made a switch somewhere where you said, I'm going to do whatever it takes. Was there a moment, or was it a gradual change?
Thermodynamics 1 in 2013 with Dr. Luisos. That was the moment where I learned how to learn. It's come up so many times of like, I want to write him a letter, and thank him for what he did. You know, he was a professor for me at UVM. He was literally like the most feared professor, because his class was so hard. And it was in that class. I remember the first exam, you know, the class average was like a 38 on the first exam. Your class grade was 3 exams. That was it. There's no homework grade, no nothing. It was just 3 exams. Mm-hmm. And the class average was like 38 on the first exam. And I think I got like a 16. So, you know, you're feeling pretty bad about yourself. And so that it was after that moment that I realized, like, okay, I don't want to fail this. How do I not fail this class? I learn the material. How do I learn the material? Like, it seems easy, but that was a moment that put me in a position where I had to learn how to learn. And so I remember I would sit in his lecture. He would talk for an hour, and I wouldn't understand a single fucking thing he said. Like, entropy, you know, like, I remember one lecture, he's talking about entropy, and I'm like, I've never heard that word before. And he's doing a whole lecture on it. So everything just went right over my head. But every time I heard a word that I didn't understand, I would write it down. And then I would go back to the book, look up the word, understand the word, and then go to the next lecture. And it was the same with reading a chapter. You know, I would read through an entire chapter, and I would realize, okay, what don't I know? And then go back and learn those. So I read a chapter, come up with 20 things that I didn't know what they were, and then go learn what each of those things were individually, and then read the chapter again. And now there's only 4 things I don't understand. Then do it all over again. You know, it was super funny. So Sammy was gone the whole week, and so I'm trying to teach myself a new subject, and I have a whole notepad of notes. So I would watch a YouTube video on the topic that I wanted to learn about, and the entire video, 20-minute video, right over my head. And so every time they said something that I didn't know what it was, I would write it down, go back, look up each of those things individually, try to get an understanding of it, and then rewatch the video. And so it was in that engineering class that I learned how to learn. So I literally applied the exact same thing to myself. when it came to competing in CrossFit. I remember I was really good at big sets of pull-ups when I was fresh. Like if I just tested my max pull-ups, it wasn't a weakness. But then as soon as it was in the middle of a workout, I would go from my 1 rep set being 50 to doing sets of 3. And I was like, okay, why am I not good at these when I'm breathing hard? And it was just like, all right, you're not good at breathing hard and then doing pull-ups. So I would get the rower. I would pull a 500 meter as fast as I could and then do 25 pull-ups as quickly as I could. Like I was trying to exhaust. I'm not good at doing pull-ups while I'm tired or breathing hard. So I'm going to start breathing hard and then do pull-ups. And I would do that until I hit 100, 200 pull-ups. And I basically applied that to everything. What am I not good at? How do I learn it? And then go do it a couple thousand times.
So now I want to get back to what you were just saying. You were talking about, was it, you were talking about Shaun White, and I feel like we were moving towards correcting weaknesses. I might be projecting this, but I think we were talking about correcting weaknesses, and you just started to mention this. But one thing that you're really big on is you have your motto, hard work pays off. And then you also say a lot, I will do today what others won't so that I can do tomorrow what others can't. But in any competitive sport, everybody, for the most part, is looking at, they're doing some reflection on the season before, they're identifying weaknesses, and they're going to work on them. What do you think is different about your approach that is doing what others don't?
So when I worked with Bergeron, he brought this up one time, and at first I didn't respond to it the way it was intended. He sat me down one day and was like, what you're doing isn't special. You know, what you're doing in training is no different than what anyone else is doing. Every games athlete is back squatting 500 plus pounds. Every games athlete snatching 300. Every games athlete's doing rowing intervals and blacking out in the gym and just like having that pain in their chest. You know, every games athlete is training their ass off just like you. And I was like, you know, it was a shock to me because I'm like, early on, I'm like, no, they're not. I work harder than anyone. It's like, no, you fucking don't. Like every games athlete's training hard. And then it was, okay, every athlete is doing that in the gym. What are you doing outside of the gym? So, you know, when it comes down to sleep schedule, diet, routine, just your mental headspace going into training every single day. If you're walking into the gym 1 out of 5 days upset and it affects your training, even 1%, well, the dude next to you that's happy every single day, he's getting 20% more quality training days than you. If you're walking into the gym tired 1 out of 10 days, well, you got a 10% advantage. And it's like, if you're tired one day, it's not fixed the next day. If you pull an all-nighter, it usually affects you like 2-3 days. So that's when I started taking that seriously. But yeah, just looking for those 1% advantages, you know, whether it's something that sounds so silly, you know, like my sleep schedule. You know, I feel silly talking about it sometimes because it's like 28, 29 years old or something. And it's like, I have a bedtime. I have a wake up time, you know? But yeah, I mean, just looking at every single spot, every decision I make comes down to what's going to benefit me in my competitive career. There's very little that comes down to, why are you doing that? Because I want to. No, I have an end goal in mind, and every decision is catered towards that.
It seems like you, over the years, and maybe this is changing a little now, but over the years, you've seemed to travel less than a lot of your competitors. And some of them are putting on seminars and they're running businesses, and you're in Vermont or you're in Cookeville and you're training. And I know you've started to do a few more appearances over the years. But has that been an intentional part of what you're talking about?
So it's the last couple of years, it's been right after the games is when I do all my traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think this year, Sammy and I together, so we try to line up all of our travels together, but I think over a 3 month span, I was on the road for 2 months. And a couple of those trips were like 42 days on the road straight.
Jesus.
Yeah. So, I still do travel a ton. But it's a tough situation because for most games athletes, they don't make their living at the games. If they're finishing sixth, seventh place, yeah, it's a cool paycheck, but you're not paying a mortgage with it. You're not, the money comes from the sponsorships, and the sponsors are paying you, so they want you to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I have a lot of good relationships with my sponsors. I've intentionally selected my sponsors that understand what I'm trying to do, and are willing to deal with some sacrifices of being hands off with me for 6 months out of the year, or just like, no, if you want me to do a trip for you, it's got to be after August, and then I'm all yours until like the new year. I'll do any travel at that point. But yeah, and I think a big part of it too is like, I love my home life. I've gotten to the point where it's like I've done some very cool trips, but even when I'm on the road in a place that is just incredible, it's an incredible vacation, I'm still thinking like, I'm excited to be home.
Mm-hmm.
Like Sam and I have built a home life that we greatly, greatly value. It's not the type of home life where it's like every 6 months I'm like, oh, I need to get out of here. It's like, no, like the home life is what I look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
We just enjoy each other's company, and we have a beautiful home, and it sounds corny, dude. I fucking love my life.
Dude, I get it.
So yeah, I tried to build a life that I don't need to run away from every 6 months to deal with it, but I've done a lot of cool trips, and but it does interfere with training. It does interfere with trying to better myself in the gym, but sometimes it's a necessary evil to keep the lights on.
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of people feel the same way as you in that when they're gone too much, they really crave being home, right? They crave the ritual, the habits, just the rhythm, right? The rhythm and momentum of just doing the same thing over and over and over and over. But it's one thing to know it and another to act in line with those values, because we all have FOMO and everybody's posting about where they're going on Instagram, and it can be really it can be really tempting to break that and forget that.
Yeah, I mean the whole FOMO thing, it's real. And it's a big realization that I came to, it was probably in the last couple of years, probably the last like 4 years, that I almost never have FOMO anymore, because I started living the life I wanted to because I wanted to. I drive the cars I drive because I want to drive those cars. I live in the house I want to live in. I dress the way I want to dress. Very little outside influence takes part of that. Like I remember like being, and this is like not that long ago, of seeing a friend get a new car, and immediately I'm like, you like your car less because they got a cooler one. And they show up in their cool sports car, and I'm like, oh man, like I want to get rid of my car and get that one now. I like that car. And I realized like, no, I want to drive the car I want to drive. So, I have a Honda Accord, I drive an F-150. Yeah. Someone shows up with a cooler, bigger, flashier rig, and it's like, all right, that's cool that you like that. That's awesome. Like, do your thing. You know, I'm not a very fashionable person. You know, most times I'm wearing sweatpants and a hoodie. And it's because, no, this is what I want to wear. Very little influence from anyone else changes those things. And I think that just makes me love my life more, love myself more. You know, if I think it's cool, I'm going to do it, you know? But yeah, just kind of marching to the beat of my own drum. And I wish I started doing it sooner, because life's way easier when you don't give a fuck what anyone else thinks.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, I think you're very young for having that perspective. I don't think a lot of people, it seems like people get that with age, but not in their 20s. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And, you know, like a lot of the people that I've talked to that have those same values are much, much older than me, you know? I remember, like, when you meet someone rich and they invite you over for dinner, I remember thinking it was so cool going over to their house and, you know, rubbing elbows with someone that's very wealthy, you know, something as simple as that. Like, that used to be a really cool thing. And now it's like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, if you're a nice person, yeah, I want to hang out with you. But
sure,
like, I'm now uncomfortable in those situations because I'm like, I don't belong here. Like, this isn't my scene. Like, I'd rather be at home kind of having a meal with some close friends. You know, what do I give a fuck how successful you are? Like, I don't know you.
Right.
I'd rather be with the people that I know and that I love. But yeah, you know, I wish I came to that realization a long time ago. You know, I remember the treacherous, like, high school years of, like, something as silly as, like, oh, I got this new hoodie that I really, really like, but I don't know what my friends are going to think about it. Like, are they going to make fun of me for it? And now it's like, who gives a fuck? They're not the ones that have to wear the hoodie. Like, if you like it, wear it, you know? So yeah, basically what I try to do day in, day out now.
Yeah, man. I don't know if he was the first one, but Simon Sinek, who wrote Start With Why, posted on his Instagram a couple years, JOMO, the joy of missing out. And I've tried to really embrace that. Like, so many times someone will invite me to something that is kind of like, that sounds cool, but I'm not, it's not like a hell yeah. And when I say no to that type of thing, whether it be a business opportunity or a trip or any kind of engagement, I feel like so proud of myself, and I get a lot of joy out of that.
Oh no, I've seen that before, the joy of missing out. And yeah, I've definitely started to experience that. And, you know, whenever I do a trip now, I try to make it really worthwhile, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I've had a couple trips, and I have a couple coming up that I'm like, yo, I'm going to crush this trip. I'm going to do some bucket list shit while I'm there.
Nice.
And yeah, so when I do travel, I really try to make it worthwhile. You know, whether that's with just cool experiences or traveling with the people that I value the most.
Right. Right on, man. So I want to finish with this. You've now won 3 in a row. You probably have enough money to sustain you for a lifetime. What's keeping you going? What's keeping you motivated?
You know, I've had a lot of these conversations, and a couple really deep ones with Chris Henshaw of, you know, the why am I doing this? You know, what's the motivation? And for a long time, the motivation was money. You know, I got into CrossFit. You know, my first competition was $500. That was a lot of money to me at the time, and I went, holy shit, like, can I do this more often? And then the next competition was 2,000, then 4,000, then 10,000. And that all happened in a quick span. I went, oh my God, like, I'm making way more money than I would delivering pizzas on the weekend. So, like, yeah, I'm going to keep doing this. And I remember I was religious about saving my money, you know, just like didn't spend a dime, anything. And someone asked me, like, what are you saving for? Like, and I said, I want to, by the end of my CrossFit career, I want to have enough money for a down payment on a house. and they laughed. They were like, that's so unrealistic. And, I just stayed quiet and said, okay, you watch, I'll do it. Like I set it as my goal, so it's going to happen. And then sure enough, that goal came and went. And then it was, okay, I want to have $100,000. And sure enough, that goal came and went. And so, the bar kept going up and up and up. And every time I set the goal, it would materialize quicker than I thought. And, but that was always the carrot on the end of the stick of why I was doing it. That was why when I'm about to sit down and do an hour worth of rowing intervals, that's what I would tell myself. I'm like, yo, if you want to get that paycheck, if you want to set yourself up for a bright future, if you want to be financially stable, you need to do these rowing intervals. And it was one morning, Chris and I are having coffee here, and, it's just the two of us, and we're both opening up of, why we're doing it. I ask him the same question of like, yo, why are you coaching seminars still? Like, you have enough money. Like, your business is killing it. Your online programming is doing great. Why are you still doing it? And, we were talking about our whys. And so, I'm at a point where if my career ended, yes, I'm fine, but so it made me think of like, oh shit, my why isn't financial. It hasn't been financial for a couple years now. And it made me think of, oh shit, what is my why? And, I just love the daily problem solving. I love the satisfaction you get from just grinding, I've never felt more satisfied sitting down and watching Netflix after just crushing yourself all day, grinding, if I have a week off from training and I watch Netflix, I feel like a lazy piece of shit. I hate myself. I'm like, I'm not bettering myself. I'm not progressing my life in a positive way. I'm like, I'm wasting my time right now. If I'm train all day, just killing myself in the gym, you're on the floor multiple times through the day, just like grasping that breath of air. And then you get home and you flick on Netflix for an hour. It's never felt so sweet. But just that pride of I'm setting myself up for the future. I'm bettering myself today. And it's that daily problem solving of, okay, I'm not good at pull-ups. How do I get better at pull-ups? Am I not good at them because of my grip strength? Am I not good at them because of my lat strength? Do my hands tear easily? Am I on the wrong grips? Am I on the wrong bar? Am I not good at short sets, small sets, the first reps when I get, and then breaking that down? And it's like, okay, I'm not good at endurance on for big sets. Okay, well, how do I get better at that? What muscle group do I have to work? How often, and just breaking that big problem down into just 100 small steps, and I've done it with so many different things. And it's that usually my favorite movements are the ones that I used to be terrible at, because I have that satisfaction. I'm seeing that hard work paying off of, okay, I knew how bad I was at this. I know I saw the work I put in. So that gratification at the end of the day, when you improve your placement by 20 points or you win the event that last year you got dead last in, there's no bigger prize and just pride of doing that. The sprint event at the games, whatever, like 3 years ago, whatever it was, that was the proudest moment I've ever had at the games. And I got second place in a sprint event that was worth 50 points. But it was from how bad I was at it. I got, I think, dead last in the sprint event the year prior. Just embarrassing performance. And then just having to put my pride aside, I went and did a track practice with a middle school track team for an entire year. The fucking shot to the ego that is. I'm trying to be one of the best at what I do in the world, and I'm racing this fucking 14-year-old named Chike in a 40-yard dash in the hallway of a middle school every Tuesday and Thursday. It's embarrassing. But show up to the event a year later and I win my heat, get second place overall. Oh, just that, like, ooh, I just got goosebumps talking about it. It's the most proud I've ever been of myself. And it was because of the work I put into it and I saw the results from it. So it's chasing that improvement, chasing that problem solving, like figuring shit out and making myself better.
That's epic, man. Marston still hits me up every now and then just bragging. I beat Fraser.
Bro, he did not beat me. Let's start off there. He started 5 meters ahead and he ended 5 meters behind. I win.
That's hilarious.
Sure, he was carrying a camera, but whatever.
He was fresh.
Yeah, I'd already done 2 laps.
I think something else that's kind of I pick up from what you're saying is it seems like, and this is common in elite performers, like having that goal and working so hard in this one area can't help but make you so sharp in every way, because everything matters, right? All of those little 1%, every little part of your life is contributing to this one goal. So you're really pulling out the very most out of yourself.
Yes, I mean, and it's even aspects of my life that I would have never thought would benefit, my athletic performance. We touched on earlier the training for the 2015 games in the gym. I still haven't hit some of the numbers I hit from 2015. My training in 2015 was fucking sick. A lot of my PRs came from that season. When I was in the gym, I crushed it. But when I was outside of the gym, I was eating like trash. My sleep schedule was so sporadic. I didn't take anything serious. I didn't do any warm-ups. I didn't do any cool downs. And yeah, in one training session, not doing a warm-up, probably not going to affect me. Now add up 300 training sessions, you're going to start aching. Now you're not doing cool downs on top of it. Now you're not eating the proper foods. You're eating foods that cause inflammation, and then you're not getting any sleep on top of it. I didn't stand a chance. So yeah, like, and then on top of it, if you're in a relationship that's not good, like that's taking away your mental space as well. And so you had insult to injury on every one of those aspects. So now every piece of my life is dedicated towards a better performance, and I just so thankful that I found Sammy, who does nothing but benefit and help my performance. I have O'Keefe helping me on anything business related. He's taken all that stuff off my plate. I literally wake up and my only concern is training and competing. That's basically all I have going on in my mind. Other people in my life take care of everything else.
Well, it's working out, man. Matt, I want to thank you for your time. And also I want to acknowledge you for your insight and your ability to articulate the way that you've developed into the man that you are and the athlete. It's really, really rare. And I've noticed you start to really come out of your shell the last couple of years in terms of doing these interviews and doing more media. And I really hope you do more of it, because you have the ability to not only inspire people as an athlete, but you're really a leader and you have an ability to inspire a lot of different things out of people. So I hope you keep it up, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I love doing stuff like this. In the last couple of years, I've started doing more and more of them. The main reason I didn't do them before is just I've incredibly bad social anxiety. Talking to someone new is just the most terrifying situation for me. But I've kind of gotten over that, and people asking me questions, it makes me think about myself and makes me do some soul searching. So yeah, I love conversations like this. Hope we can do one again soon.
Love it, man. And where can people find you online?
The one that I keep updated the most is my Instagram, at Matthew Fraz, Matthew with 1 T.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time. This episode is finished, but your training journey continues. Head over to brutestrengthtraining.com/SSW and grab your free pack of 32 accessory workouts that you can incorporate into your training and start improving your strength immediately. That's brutestrengthtraining.com/SSW.